If you love movies and movie discussions, you've come to the right place. Who am I, you ask? I am The Wiz, and I'm here to review the 1945 drama Mildred Pierce, starring Joan Crawford, Zachary Scott, Blyth, Eve Arden, and Jack Carson, directed by Michael Curtiz. One of the things I love about doing the podcast and doing these reviews the way I do it, I get to discover new things about directors that I didn't really know. Even though I do the podcast, I am not a movie expert. I don't claim to be. I don't pretend to be. I love movies. I've always loved film, but I will also admit I have several blind spots when it comes to actually what movies I watch. For the longest time, I only knew Michael Curtiz as the director of Casablanca, and I thought that was his only good film. That's the only film he was known for. And to me, that was like, oh, well, you got one of the best films of all time. It's one that people know of. That's not bad, right? It's funny now looking at his work now and realizing he's had a lot of great films, which makes more sense because you'd think somebody who would make Casablanca had many other films that they've made before and after that. And one of his more well-known ones is this one what we're reviewing right now, Mildred Pierce. But he's had others too. He's had other movies such as The Adventures of Robin Hood, Captain Blood. I believe he directed the only good Elvis movie, which is King Creole, which makes me wonder if I should give that a shot. Maybe not. Kim Shackman, who loves Elvis, has also said his movies are pretty bad. So I don't know. Maybe I will give that a shot. I just wanted to state, like, it's always interesting to do the podcast and learn more about specific directors and stuff like that. So let's get into it. Let's get into the review of Mildred Pierce, directed by Michael Curtiz. But before that, let's get into the plot. The plot starts around Mildred Pierce, who is played by Joan Crawford. Her marriage to Bert, played by Bruce Bennett, is in flounders after he leaves her for another woman. Motivated to raise her two daughters on her own, she starts working and eventually starts her own business. But her daughter Veda, who is played by Blyth, starts to resent her as Mildred's job degrades her social status. This all culminates on an investigation of the death of Mildred's second husband, Monty, played by Zachary Scott. And that is the plot, so while we get into our 3 points, and the first point I have for Mildred Pierce is, this is an effective mix of noir and character drama. Not to say that noirs can't also be character dramas, but more often than not, a noir tends to just be a crime movie that is dark and has certain kind of tropes that surround itself into the movie. This blends those really well. The character drama is about Mildred Pierce and her relationship with a bunch of different people throughout the film, the main one being her daughter, Veda. The film starts off pretty dark. It is about the shooting of Monty, and then it goes into a flashback with a detective talking about what's happened in the past and how things led up to this. What is interesting in this film is that it starts off just as a basic character drama. It's got really good writing with the characters and the dialogue in it. But as the film goes towards the end, it starts to get darker. It starts to use the tropes of noirs in a very interesting way. I think the effective mix of these two elements was actually really well done. And my second point, its focus on toxic relationships make the film flourish. There is a constant theme throughout the entire film, and is that Mildred Pierce, as good in its intentions as she has, is surrounding herself in incredibly toxic relationships. The most toxic relationship, which is utterly fascinating, is the one with her daughter, who is Veda. That relationship is incredibly toxic. Even though Mildred is trying to do the best for her daughter, she ends up creating probably the most damaging relationship that she's actually in the movie. But you also have the relationship with Wally, who Wally wants to get with her, wants to be with her, and she's using him to get what he wants, even though he's constantly trying to get with her. And then you have the relationship with Monty, which I won't spoil how that becomes very toxic at a certain point too. Even the original relationship with Bert has some toxicity to it. It's just an interesting story about how a person with good intentions and trying to do the right thing can create herself a litany of toxic relationships and problems just by her actions, even though she was trying to do good. And my third point, Veda's lack of depth, while effective for the main plot, is a disappointment. It's not that I don't like the character of Veda. I think she's a good character. My problem is her only depth in it is that she is incredibly entitled, really spoiled. She really has no moral compass in this film, which I find surprising because she is raised by two parents who, for the most part, are pretty moral people. But I think the reason why she doesn't have the lack of depth is because she's essentially the femme fatale of the movie. She's the person that causes all the problem and is the one that is most desired by most of the characters in the film. And desired, what I mean by is Mildred wants her affection and her love. I just wish there was more depth to this character. It would have been really interesting to see how Mildred's smothering of her and trying to give her everything she wanted because Mildred did not have a life that was good in her eyes really caused how toxic this relationship and how bad her intentions have become. It is really the quote-unquote good parenting of Mildred that created this monster. But the film doesn't really show it that way. The film just shows that this is just a bad person. And I know some people are just bad. Trust me. I know some people, even if they're raised right, just end up being terrible people. I think this would have been a much interesting movie, character-wise, if Veda was a character that had a lot more depth to her when it came to, I guess, why she is the way she is, instead of just being, it's just how she is. It's not bad. I don't think it's a bad thing about the movie. I just think it's a little bit of a disappointment. I would have liked a little more depth on that character. And here are the footnotes for Mildred Pierce. And I just have a question. What Michael Curtiz film should I watch next? Honestly, I kind of want to see Angels with Dirty Faces. Part of me kind of wants to check out Adventures of Robin Hood just to see what made him a little more popular. Should I watch King Creole? I don't know. Maybe. That would be interesting. But yeah, I don't really have much else in the way of footnotes. So if you have a comment, what do you think is the next Michael Curtiz film that I should review? But post it in the comments and let me know. Overall, I'm going to recommend Mildred Pierce. I actually like this film a good deal. I do find the lack of depth on Veda disappointing, even though I think the rest of the characters have a good amount of depth to make them very interesting. I really think Joan Crawford did a really good job in this movie. This is a performance that I think would be very hard to do because you would still have to make her likable, intelligent, and driven while being blind to the fact that you're turning your daughter into a monster and that all these people are using you and you're just not recognizing it. Other actresses could make this character look pretty dumb, but I think Crawford has this way about her that she can make her seem intelligent and driven and then still feel like she's getting screwed, even though it was all of her actions that led it to this point. Again, I actually like the performance of Anne Blyth, who played Veda, and I do like the way the film is shot too. I think this is a very good film. It's not going to be on my top of this year of films I've watched, but I think mainly it has to do with the fact I just wish there was more on Veda and why she is the way she is. But overall, I do recommend Mildred Pierce. If you haven't seen it, I think you're going to have to rent it on most of the streaming services. I actually have the Blu-ray, so I got to check it out on that. So overall, I recommend Mildred Pierce. Now, if you want my full review on this movie, you can go to my website at IamTheWiz.com. You'll have my full written review right on the site, along with a link to the video that has this review that you've just listened to. Alright, so for Thursday, we're going to have the 007 Debriefings with Zero, and then that movie is Tomorrow Never Dies. Saturday, I'm going to be watching Mommy Dearest, directed by Frank Perry. That's going to be an interesting one. So on Tuesday, I wanted to watch some films that were from graphic novels, but I wanted to shy away from the standard Marvel and DC characters like Iron Man, Superman, and stuff like that. And I want to get into some more interesting types of graphic novel adaptations into movies. And I'm going to watch a movie called When the Wind Blows, directed by Jimmy T. Murakami. Honestly, I haven't heard a lot about this movie, but from the little that I have heard, said it's a very interesting movie. It's also kind of a disturbing movie, so if you're a little sensitive to certain things, you may want to skip this one. It is free on Tubi right now. So tune in Thursday for the 007 Debriefings with Tomorrow Never Dies. Saturday is Mommy Dearest, directed by Frank Perry. And Tuesday is When the Wind Blows, directed by Jimmy T. Murakami. I am The Wiz, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.